Did you see what Daddy made for you?
I like this crib I got.
What about the thing I made for you?
Oh, I forgot her bed's at home.
Did you go look at your new desk? Look, you can put all your things in there. What's up, guys? I'm Zach and welcome back to Workshop Edits. And in today's episode of My Daughter Does Not Care What I Just Built Her, we are going to be building this TROFAST style desk that has become very popular from Ikea. It utilizes a repeating pattern within the legs with some dado grooves or railings and these bins from Ikea that will slide in and out that you can really customize as much or as little as you want to fit the space. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm in the shop and I just want to talk you through a little bit what I'm going to be doing. So the way that I've seen these desks done before is with some nice furniture grade plywood, which by the way is insanely expensive these days. I bought 2 sheets of furniture grade plywood and they were $89.99 each plus tax. So this overall desk, when you factor in 2 sheets of plywood, Pockethole screws, glue, finish, the drawers, like $350 all in. So take that into account. However, it's a cool project because they're incredibly customizable. Like you can build them as big and wide as you want based on like the number of sheets of plywood you want to buy. You can make them as tall as you want. There's actually a really good chart out there for like the height of a sitting desk based on your toddler's age or your size. So I factored that in my overall design. The overall like cut list and everything is actually relatively straightforward. It's just like maneuvering big sheets of plywood. So I've got my sheets of plywood. I'm gonna make all of my cuts here. The goal for this first round is cut the big piece on top, which I think the final dimension I ended up with was around 91 inches. And then the overall height of the desk factoring in a top that is 3/4 inches. And then the height of the supports, it's gonna be, I think those pieces are like a little over 19 inches tall so that the desk itself is roughly 20 inches tall. The cool thing about these is you can really make them as tall as you want, and you can also add supports later on as your child gets bigger and you wanna raise this thing up or you wanna turn it into a standing desk. Like they're super modifiable. I'm just making mine the size of a on the smaller side 3-year-old, but again, room for expansion, and you can change the amount of drawers that you have. Like they're super cool. They, again, like it's a little bit pricey, but I don't know, for a custom desk, like $350, she's gonna have it forever for as long as she wants in this room. I think it's kind of an awesome project. So I hope you guys can find just like a little bit of inspiration, like see how I did it, and the project itself is cool. So what I wanna do, like I said, is cut the top down, and then I wanna cut all of the vertical pieces, get the dados cut on those, and get those pieces glued together so that then tomorrow I can just assemble the whole desk and then add support pieces at the bottom. So let's start breaking down all of our material. Cutting full sheets of plywood in 100-degree heat is no joke. Just finished breaking down all of the legs. The nice thing about this is that it's modular, so what I'm going to do next is mark out where I'm going to cut my dados. Each one is going to get 4 dados. Now in my design, some of the sections have larger bins, but what I'm going to do is just cut the dados in case I ever want to swap those out for a bunch of smaller bins, and it just makes it easier, and I'm not going to be able to do it after the fact, and I figured why not. So I'm going to use one piece, mark out where I think I want all of the dados, use a test bin, which I have right here, and I'm waiting for the rest to come in the mail, and then go from there. The whole point is to cut slightly larger than 1/2-inch grooves because the grooves on these, if you can see them, are 1/2 inch, and these will just slide in and out nicely without a whole lot of friction, but will also be held in there tightly. Am I the only one who always ends up almost slicing their entire hand off when trying to change their saw blade? It's crazy how different these sizes are for the dado stack on a saw stop. I'm going to cut dados that are 1/2 inch. That should give it just enough play, but keep it in there nice and secure. Got the dado blade set up, got all my pieces cut. Did a test cut just to make sure that the drawer slide fits. It fits just with enough wiggle room for it to slide nicely, but it's not going to be able to like wiggle itself out, especially with a 3-year-old pulling these bins in and out. Most important thing with doing this, again, all of these are going to be the exact same, and I marked out what I'm just calling like my story piece, which has exactly where all of my cuts are going to go, is to just keep the orientation of all of these in the same direction, because one length is 19 3/4 and one is 19 1/4, so there's a 1/2 inch difference. So I do have them all stacked up like they should be, and I'm just going to do all of one cut at a time and then repeat that. So I've got 40 of these to cut, so taking it slow, going to be using my gripper. Dados are no joke. Cutting wide pieces is kind of no joke, and I have had kickbacks before, so just take your time on these. All 40 dados are cut. Did that very slow, felt safe doing it, but I'm just gonna recommend again, like dados are no joke, and if you haven't done them before, just take your time. I went ahead and sorted the pieces. Again, like you're never gonna see the back of the desk, so I just found the fronts that I like the best, because there is a little bit of like math that is gonna go into this, because I need 3 sections that are glued together and mirrors of each other, because they're going to be in the middles and housing drawers. So I picked those 6, and then the rest are going to be just individual pieces that I don't have to touch until I assemble this thing. So the last thing I want to do before tomorrow is get those 3 sections glued up, and I'm just going to spread glue, do it on top of my table saw, which I know is super flat, and then put something super heavy to sandwich all of them together. Then I'll know that they're nice and straight. And I'll keep them lined up too, because all the dados are exactly where they need to be. So if I keep them lined up, everything should be good when I go to drill pocket holes and start assembling this thing. All right, day 2, got the pieces right there. We're gonna cut some pocket holes. So I ran into a problem I've never run into before, which is because I cut the dados, there's actually not a lot of material for these pocket hole screws to grip onto. And normally when you do 3/4 inch material, you use 1 1/4 pocket hole screws, but I have to use 3/4 inch or 1 inch screws at this point. So I don't think it's a huge deal, but I think what it means is I'm going to actually glue these in place, and then I'm just going to add more reinforcement, like lateral reinforcement for it, than I maybe originally was going to. But weird problem, but I think it's gonna be fine. So the construction of this is relatively straightforward. So I've got my dado pieces, and I did mark out, or I can be picky with what the front or back is, but it's gonna be very simple. Each of these pieces will get mounted like this. Obviously this is upside down. And I'm also going to mount these so that they are recessed 1/2 inch. Drawers are going to fit in to the grooves just like that, and then another piece will go here. So what I need to do is take all of my pieces, starting on this end, and I'm going to mark all the way across. This isn't cut to length, so it'll get cut to length at the end. I think 91 or 92 inches is the final width of it, because that's how wide the space is. Again, you can make it as big as you want. So what I just want to make sure I do is I take into account how wide these are, so that these dados are just slightly wider. The inside of the dados are slightly wider at each step, That way there's just a little bit of play here, but these can slide in and out nicely without them popping out, because kids are crazy. So let's do all that marking. Start on this side, actually. I'm changing my mind. I'm gonna do these one at a time and then just progress over versus trying to pre-mark everything out. All right, so I got the first one in place. This is not very stable just because of that groove, but I wanted to make sure that it was lined up and it didn't go through the plywood, so it's in there now. So I'm gonna take now one of my middle divider pieces. That'll just stand up, perfect. Take my bin, slide it in. Just gonna mark this piece right here. So remove this, remove the bin real quick. This was my marking right here. Take my tape measure, put it up against there, and I can see that that is 11 and 1/16. So with that measurement, now I can just go piece by piece, use 11 and 1/16 as my spacing in between, and I'll know that because all of my dados are the same depth and all the bins are the same width, that everything should line up perfectly. Easy. I've got all of the legs installed. They are real flimsy, actually here. They're pretty flimsy. So what I'm gonna do is, originally I was just gonna put like little kind of stretches here just to keep everything even. Instead, what I'm gonna do is, because I have quite a bit of extra material, is I'm gonna cut some big spacers that are gonna go maybe like half or whatever the width is of the material I have, and just like put like a square blocking in here and use pocket holes to pull everything together, and that should add like shearing strength to it. And I might even cut a smaller one and do it at the front base of it. We'll see, but I think that'll shore everything up. All right, this is much more secure. So the last thing I'm gonna do is trim this to length. Now, this corner is gonna go into the corner of the room, and there's some baseboard there, so this is kind of perfect. So I'm gonna use blue tape, the furniture grade plywood, like maple plywood or oak plywood that has this really thin veneer, is really hard to work with. I'm just gonna go out and say that. Like a thin veneer, a lot of chip out, unless you have total zero clearance inserts on like everything, you're gonna get some chip outs. So that's made it hard to like actually work with. But I think all the areas that are gonna be like accessible by like my daughter's little hands, I think it's gonna be fine. So the corner I mentioned, there's baseboards there, so I'm actually just gonna trim this a little bit long so this can go all the way up to that corner. So just be a little bit of overhang, and it's perfect because I can just use this as my straight edge. I'll have to cut this way and use just whatever this width is for my saw, which I think is just a little under an inch. But I'm just using blue tape here to try to minimize the chip out on this cut, because I'm also cutting upside down here. It should pull the wood in on this side, so I think this should, you know, the chip out's mostly for here, but I'm gonna do the blue tape on both sides just to try to make this cut as clean as possible. didn't think about this. Shoot. Yeah, I think I have to take the blade guard off, which I would not recommend doing. This is the only time I've ever removed a blade guard. I hate it. Be careful. Very clean. Last thing I'm gonna do before I put a finish on this and just do like the touch-ups of sanding is before I flip it over, I'm just gonna put on some like foam paddings underneath it just so it doesn't scratch the flooring if it gets shifted around. All right, everything's sanded down. I ended up sanding all of after I rolled the edges, I sanded them to 320 so that they're pretty smooth. Yeah, I feel good about like running my hand along these edges and everything. Feels kid friendly. So for finish, I'm using this finish that I got a long time ago. I think it's Swedish. It's like clear, it rolls on, or kind of like you can spread it on, but it dries really quickly. It dries really smooth too, so you don't actually have to sand it. So I'm gonna do the entire top, the sides, and this front face. I'm not gonna worry about anything else. Oh, actually I'm gonna do just the insides here just to sort of protect it, because this section is where my daughter will eventually be sitting and doing arts and crafts, and her dirty little feet kick in the walls. So I'm actually just gonna pop this open and dump the finish onto here, and then use a combination of a card scraper and then this small paintbrush just to roll it in. All right, so that is gonna wrap it up for this video. Now, I'd said this a lot in the video, but the reality is you can customize these desks as much as you want. You can make them bigger, you can make them taller, you can change the variations of the types of dados that you have to fit more or less storage, or make it more customizable. You can paint it, you can add color to it. I think those are definitely things that we might add to this later once this room is fully set up, but for now, I think just the minimalistic wood plus the drawers bin is the right look for this space. You can also get very customizable with the types of things that you put on the wall up here in terms of paper rollers or extra storage for arts and crafts. Like, it's really a great, simple, but incredibly versatile and customizable project, and awesome for a toddler's room who have lots of toys that are often spread out throughout the house and take over your space. And overall, like, really happy with this project. It was a very simple weekend build. There's lots of different ways to do it if you don't have the tools that I have. So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you enjoyed it, would love it if you would just like the video, share it with somebody, maybe subscribe to the channel for the next video, and I'll see you guys next time on whatever it is that I'm building. Bye.